My name is Pierce. People come to me when the dead don't stay silent. This case began on a gray October morning, in a town that smelled of wet leaves, chimney smoke, and something else I couldn't name yet, something colder. The letter came without a return address. Typed. Neat. Sterile. Detective Pierce. We need help. People say she walks the halls again. It's starting like before. The crying. The knocking. We can't sleep. Please come. E. Ainsley. The postmark was from a town called Bearhaven. I'd never heard of it. I arrived just before dusk. The town was little more than a strip of fog-drenched road flanked by shuttered windows and low whispers. Locals stared but said nothing. Only one person greeted me, Emma Ainsley, the letter's author, early 40s, pale, tired in that way people only get when fear replaces sleep. She took me straight to the house. Big, Victorian, rotting at the edges. Second-story windows like eyes half-lidded in mourning. Locals called it the Mourner's house. According to Emma, it belonged to her aunt, Judith Ainsley, a former grief counselor who ran sessions for the bereaved inside the home for nearly 2 decades. The house had seen more tears than joy, more silence than laughter. Judith died here 2 years ago, Emma said quietly as we stepped onto the porch. In her chair. No one found her for 3 days, and yet the lights in the hallway flickered as we entered, like the house had been expecting us. Emma showed me the sitting room. High-backed chairs circled around a stone hearth. The walls were lined with photos, dozens of clients Judith had counseled over the years. Every one of them had red yarn pinned from their frame to Judith's, like an elaborate mourning map. Some of the faces were crossed out with black ink. She believed, Emma explained, that grief binds people, sometimes too tightly. I walked the house for an hour. It smelled like dried lavender and mildew. The upstairs bedrooms were empty, but I noticed something strange. Each room had one item that didn't belong. A child's boot in the guest room. A single glove in the master. A broken mirror in the attic. I asked Emma who had access to the house after Judith's death. No one, she said. I locked it. I was the executor. I didn't believe her. Not fully. That night, I stayed in the mourner's house. At 2:46 a.m., I woke to crying. Soft at first, female. Somewhere near the base of the stairs. I stepped into the hallway, heart steady. The house was dark, still, but the crying grew louder, more urgent, not mourning, wailing. I followed it down the stairs, toward the sitting room. The photos on the wall were all facing the floor, every one of them, and in the center of the chairs was an urn. It hadn't been there before. Carved on its side was a name, Judith Ainsley. I hadn't asked where she was buried. Now I knew. I turned. The hallway behind me seemed longer than before, stretching into shadow. And then came the knocking. 3 sharp raps. From inside the walls. Not mice. Not wood creaking. Knocking. Deliberate. Human. I stood still, waiting. From somewhere deep inside the house, a woman's voice whispered. You promised. You said they would move on. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. In the morning, the urn was gone. So was Emma. Only her purse remained, left in the hallway. And on the mirror by the door, written in the condensation that hadn't been there before, were the words, Grief does not leave. It waits. By morning, Emma Ainsley had vanished. I searched the house. Every room. Every creaking corridor. No trace. Her coat was still hanging by the door. Her car outside untouched. The only new addition, the faint scent of lilies upstairs, Judith's favorite flower, according to Emma. The local police didn't care much. She was always a bit fragile, the officer said, not even writing her name down. Towns had enough ghosts. I drove into town and asked around. No one wanted to talk about Judith, but an old librarian, Mrs. Talbot, finally relented. She helped people grieve, she said, but some say she kept them grieving. I asked what that meant. She lowered her voice. They say she believed that letting go was the true death, that mourning kept the dead present. She held séances near the end, said the dead weren't resting. They were listening. I returned to the house before dusk. Something told me not to be there after dark, but I had no choice. Emma was still missing. And the house, it was changing. The photos on the wall had been rehung, neatly, perfectly except for one. It was a photo of a young man, late 20s, eyes hollow, mouth slightly open as if caught mid-sob. A red string stretched from his frame across the room and into the wall. I followed it. Behind the bookshelf, I found a hidden door. It led to a small, windowless room with faded carpet and one single item, a tape recorder. I pressed play. Click. Session 12, March 14th. His name is Daniel. He's lost his wife. He says he hears her at night. I told him that's natural. But I also told him not to be afraid. Grief is a bridge, not an illness. If we mourn long enough, the boundary weakens. Whispering. Judith, it hurts. I just want her back. Judith's voice. Then don't stop grieving, Daniel. Don't let her go. You don't have to. Ever. Silence. Then knocking. Another tape. Another session. Another client. Each one ended the same way, with knocking. Always 3. Always followed by a whisper. You brought me back. Why did you stop? I found 6 tapes in total. 6 clients. And every one of them had gone missing within a year of their last session. I checked the town records. No police reports. No funerals. No bodies. Just grief. Frozen. Sustained. Preserved like a ritual. And Emma had just become the 7th. That night I prepared. I placed the recorder in the center of the sitting room. Lit a fire. Sat in the same high-backed chair where Judith had died. And I played the final tape. Judith's voice was calm. Controlled. Almost soothing. If you're listening to this, then you've come looking for answers. But grief doesn't answer. It echoes. Again and again. Until it becomes something else. A companion. A tether. A chain. You cannot banish sorrow. You can only give it form. And then the knocking started again. This time louder. Closer. I didn't move. I let it happen. The floorboards creaked behind me. Something stepped into the room. I turned. And for the first time, I saw her. She stood in the firelight. Judith Ainsley. Pale. Silent. Dressed in the same shawl from the portrait above the stairs. Her eyes didn't glow or burn. They wept. Endlessly. Thick, silent tears sliding down her cheeks as if mourning herself. I should have run. But I didn't. Instead I asked quietly, "Where is Emma?" Judith said nothing. She simply raised her hand and pointed. Not at me, not at the door, but downward. Toward the floor beneath us. The basement. I had never noticed a basement door before. But now, there it was, half concealed behind an antique curtain, as if the house had finally decided to show me. I went down slowly, the steps moaning underfoot, into a space that smelled of wet earth and dust. 7 chairs. 7 recorders. 7 names carved into the beams. Emma. Daniel. Claire. Jonah. Richard. Elise. Thomas. And in the center, a table. Upon it, a final, unfinished séance circle drawn in chalk. At its center, Emma's notebook, wide open, pen resting beside it. The last page read. I heard her voice last night. Not a dream. Not a memory. She asked me why I stopped grieving. I didn't know what to say. I think I answered wrong. I called her name. No reply. But then, breathing, from behind a wooden partition, I found a narrow alcove. Emma sat inside, wrapped in Judith's shawl, eyes unfocused. She whispered, "She won't let us go if we still mourn. She says our grief is the only thing keeping them here." I think I believed her. I pulled her out gently, and as we climbed the stairs together, the knocking began again. It followed us, up the stairs, through the hall, out the front door. Only once we crossed the garden gate did it stop. The next morning, I returned alone. The house stood quiet. I lit a match, dropped it through the mail slot, watched as the fire caught on the curtains, and I stayed until the roof fell in. Somewhere between memory and obsession, Judith had built a shrine, not to the dead, but to the grief of the living. She wasn't a monster. She was a mourner who had forgotten how to stop mourning, and she taught others to do the same, until it consumed them too. Emma recovered, slowly. She left the town. I visited her once. She didn't say much, but she smiled when I asked if she'd written anything lately. "Yes," she said, "but this time, it's fiction." Case closed. But even now, on quiet nights, I sometimes hear the faintest knock, 3 times, and I wonder if she's still trying to come back, or if I'm the one who hasn't let go.